So I was still doing commentary. That was weird as well, seeing me doing commentary and listening to my old, absolutely wanting to cringe sometimes at some of the nonsense that comes out of me when I'm just being William Regal. And anyway, let's start from top to bottom, because I enjoyed the show immensely. But if you're gonna, things will jog my memory, but it's gone so quickly, and so much gone on, and everybody that's on that, good or bad, as far as people that were on that card, they've had a whole life, and their lives have gone in different directions, and some not good, and some incredibly well. And like Becky's somebody who means a lot to me, because I was there on her tryout. There's a bit of a, whether people know this or not, I can tell you, this is definitely a fact. In the last, whatever time that I was a scout for WWE, things started to change. There was the wrestlers who I took care of, and then as far as athletes, whereas 15, 20 years ago, a lot of athletes, if they were amateur wrestlers or whatever they were, would, and probably before that, but there was still, like, if you go back and watch in 2000, there was the group of, it was an incredible group that turned up. And that's, there's stories out there that people just, because they just look and they don't actually know what kind of a incredible thing happened, just organically happened at the right time. There is the early 2000s OVW team of Randy Orton, John Cena, Shelton Benjamin, Dave Batista, all coming
Brock.
out of obviously Brock, you know, all coming out of that group, but they all just happened to turn up at the right time. In this job, very rarely do you get a group of people that all are so talented turn up at one time ever. That was that was just unbelievable, the amount of talent that turned up there. And I know there's the people that probably that were there that go, yes, because we know how to do everything right. Well, once that team left, I don't remember another team coming out of there of that standard.
That's true.
Right?
Right.
You get the right people turn up at the right time, and everything works out. And it did. Everything worked out. It's like, if there was, back in time a little bit, if you got one huge or one top person in wrestling turn up every so many years, you were doing good. And one small, and it was a lot. Again, if you look, it's the biggest time ever in wrestling. You got Steve Austin, The Rock, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Mankind, everybody in a few years. You could have actually done with them, one of them just coming along every
right.
3 or 4 years, right? Because
Right.
that would have carried everything, keep going for. But it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes things happen. Well, in my time as a talent scout, there was a lot of things that went on as far as the wrestlers and the wrestling, the independent wrestlers that were out there. They had to find their own world, right? And they did what they did, and they became what they became. And NXT mirrored a lot of that. And they were finding ways to, whatever was left in the world, the wrestlers were going there. Well, then the athletes. Well, in my time as a scout there, a lot of the bigger, stronger people that came along weren't really that, there wasn't that many that wanted to do this. As far as, I know Jerry Briscoe did an incredible job of nurturing the amateur wrestlers. And then there were other people that were looking for football players or whatever. But there was a majority of the younger generation all tried or went to go to MMA instead, because that was an outlet then. Now, you can take this, and this might be some people will have their own ideas about this. I know because I was seeing who was coming. Not the rest. The wrestlers were the wrestlers that you saw. As far as athletes, there wasn't that many big, strong, or the kind of people that WWE like coming our way. A lot of them were going to try to be in MMA. And I've had many conversations with people who know a lot of things about a lot of people that I can't really say, but they wanted it. Would you rather be a world champion of something real, or would you rather be the world champion of entertainment business? So, and then by the time that they'd gone through finding out whether MMA worked for them, some of them were coming our way and they couldn't get through it. And when I say get through it, there's me and a couple of other people know what was happening, either legal things or medical things. We couldn't hire them. That's why I was very happy. It's been it was about 18 months ago, when in one group and in COVID, in one group, the Creed brothers and Bron Breakker turned up, and then a couple of other fellas as well. And I'm thinking, where have these been for the last 10, 15 years? People, not only people who look like that, but want to be professional wrestlers. We were getting a lot of athletes, and trying to think of his real name, but Madcap Moss. He was an incredible, and he always was. He just had a lot of setbacks with different things. I'm so glad he's getting now to people see how good he was. But he was one of the few of the bigger fellas that fit all the boxes, but wanted to be he might not have been wanted to be when he was young, I don't know. But when he got into it, he did everything he could to be a wrestler. There was just not a huge amount of the people that came that really wanted to be wrestlers. And so it depends on how much effort they put in, right? It's when you get a couple of people like Bronson Rechsteiner and the Creed brothers, and they want to be wrestlers, and they do nothing but study this or have backgrounds in it, and that's they're huge fans. That's why it works, right? John Cena, when I first met him, was a bodybuilder, but he was a wrestling fan. And that's why he became, in my opinion, and I've been around them all, there's nobody can say a bad word about John Cena to me, because I've been lucky to ride off the coattails of a huge amount of people, right? I've rode on the coattails of all the top people in WCW, but the pay thing was a lot different in WWE. I got paid off the gates. And I was around Steve Austin. I was lucky enough to be on shows with Steve Austin and The Rock and The Undertaker and all these, Shawn Michaels and Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin and all these incredible people, right? But there's nobody has made me as much money because of the time period that I was wrestling in the WWE as John Cena, because of longevity. Because again, a lot of those fellas came and they were huge, incredible, massive stars for a few years, for 3 or 4 years. And they're still huge, massive stars, but they all went in different directions. John stayed the course, and he stayed the course, and I was on every show with him, nearly every show. Luckily, wherever he moved to, I just looked out that I was a lot of the time on shows with him, and he was making, my family more money because I was getting over the longer period of time. Does that make sense?
Sure,
There's people made me more like Steve. I was like, got to be on shows with Selling Out with Steve Austin, got to be on shows Staying Out with Rock. But it was for the last couple of years that they were around. I think it was a 10-year or something run or more with John Cena. So, but John Cena wanted to be, well, there was a lot of people in the last 10 years or so that were big people as far as what WWE like, who just either didn't really care that much, or we couldn't hire them for whatever reason.
Right.
And so that was a thing that I don't know. I can understand why Mr. McMahon wanted to change things, because he doesn't care about how people get there. He just wants the finished product.
Right.
And the people at NXT take the rap for that sometimes. And it is our jobs, not mine anymore, but it was our jobs to create new superstars. Well, you get what you're getting, and that is the occasional athlete that hasn't decided, that wants to be a wrestler, and it takes time to pay off, or the wrestlers that are already out there. And it was just the way it was in the last 10 years or so. So getting back to what NXT was, NXT at the time, we were trying to find the new group, and we were always trying to find the new group of next John Cena, the next Rock. Well, they don't come along very often.
No, they're generational talents.
Generational talents that have only come along in history. There was a group of them came along at the end of the 90s that all came along together, but they don't come along very often. John Cena was, a different kettle of fish, but he was an athlete who loved pro wrestling. Well, you don't get those very often. A lot of people were going to MMA, and then it was whatever reason, and different things were going on. I know this is where you need to keep me on track, but there's so much of this misinformation out there of why things turned out the way they turned out. The wrestling people were the people, and we were hiring a lot of them, that were the ones who were going out and hustling and getting good at wrestling. But there wasn't that many of them that were that big, or had the personalities, or had and so it's people will tell their own stories and whatever. We did the best we could possibly do with NXT, and if you don't know what was going on, and a lot of times I can't tell you, and I won't tell you, and if I do, it's time for me to go, because I will never ever. I'm a man of my word, and there's going to be a lot of things I can't say on this podcast as to why certain things didn't work out or whatever. So anybody listening has never got to worry about me telling anything bad about anybody. Yeah. It's not going to happen, right?
Well, and if that's something I think we all like about this podcast,
right? And if it does, it's time for me to go. And I'm saying this, and this is, don't let this get took out of context. If I start doing that, you know that I've lost the plot.
Right.
Because you can, and anybody where I'm working now, I work at AEW, anybody there, that's, I'm not just saying this out loud. The people who know me know, if you tell me something, that's it. It stays with me. Or I have to tell you, when I was in my old job, look, you've told me this, before you tell me, if you're going to tell me what I think you're going to tell me, I cannot not tell my boss about this. But if I'm giving you my word that we have conversations, I'm giving you my word, it will go nowhere. I had to be the keeper of a lot of people's problems and secrets and whatever else, or I'll get you whatever you need and help and whatever else. That's what I did. So what we're seeing now, as far as NXT TakeOver, the first one, is the group of people that we had at the time.